Dr. Boghosian, you're opening the session. The education is very dear and near to me. Hence, I was given the privilege to choose, so we're starting with you. So you're leading an institution that I believe is safe to say has shaped the hearts and minds, now already generations that have gone on to change and to shape Armenia and its nation. And of course, I mentioned that you were leading also AUA when the BA program, the first US accredited BA program, probably in the former USSR region, it's safe to say, was being formed. But last year, when you responded to the call to come and lead the institution again, it was even a more challenging time. So I think we Armenians are a really peculiar nation in a way. We love each other, but not always. We help and support each other. Perhaps we could do more. We adore and we're very proud of our past throughout the history, always, but not so much with the present. So in our conversation that we had prior to the session, I was really blown away by how you articulated your vision about Armenia, that it went beyond the contemporary challenges. And you are pushing us to think of a discourse that is larger and that will give us all this, this very nice feeling of flying the flag. Could you please share with us what is your vision for the development of Armenia and Armenians as a humanist and as a strong nation? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Boghosian, for the question. Thanks to the organizers of the summit for inviting me. Let me begin with the standard disclaimer that on questions like these, my opinions are mine alone. AUA has no official position on these kinds of things, but I do plead guilty to being an optimist. And let me explain a little bit in answer to your question why I feel that way. I think the question is very much on the mark. I agree that we, as a people, can be very hard on ourselves. At this critical time in our history, I see rifts and communication issues between Armenia and its diaspora, between rural Armenia and urban Armenia, between different parts of the diaspora. I call Armenia my home these days, and at the same time, I have the privilege of frequently traveling between all of these places, so I can see these kinds of rifts and communication issues clearly. Sometimes I speak with people in the diaspora, sometimes who have never been to Armenia, and they tell me how horrible they've heard things are in Armenia. And I listen, and I could tell them how pleasant life is here. I could tell them how vibrant a city Yerevan is. I could tell them about the fresh air in the mountains, but I could go on. I could tell them that the Armenian Statistical Committee's recently published life expectancy figures for both women and men in Armenia are actually higher than the corresponding figures in the United States. And I do tell them these things. I could tell them that the World Bank ranks Armenia as a middle-class country. I could tell them that Armenia has a multifaceted foreign policy with involvement from the West now, increasingly, but also from Iran, India, China, and elsewhere. It's a very complex country. I could say all of these things, but most of the time when I hear things like that, all I can manage to get out of my mouth is, where did you hear that from? What planet are you living on? Yerevan is a wonderful place. When I think about this some more, however, I realize that this kind of divisiveness is neither natural nor random. I follow world news closely enough to recognize engineered divisiveness. I studied, actually, in my mathematical career at Tufts University, mathematical models of what's come to be called opinion dynamics. and how opinions can be molded and changed by strategically injecting misinformation into social networks. It can be done by our adversaries on the international stage, partisan political operatives. It's the same kind of divisiveness, I would point out, that has poisoned US political discourse in recent years, amplified by chatbots on social media. By now, we all know the story of the company Cambridge Analytica, the company located in England that very possibly affected the outcome of the 2016 US presidential election by strategically injecting misinformation in the web. Cambridge Analytica is gone now, but dozens of other companies have raced to take its place and offer their services, and by their services I mean the distortion of objective reality, for sale to the highest bidder. Now, it's no surprise that Armenia's adversaries are more capable of hiring these kinds of services than we are. In fact, I sometimes think that Armenia has no idea of what is being done to it on this virtual battlefield. Social media are not innocent services that giant corporations altruistically offer you because they want you to communicate more conveniently. As the saying goes, if you're not paying for the product, then you are the product. Social media has become an instrument of power to divide people, and I think that Armenia ignores this reality, this virtual battlefield, at its peril. But let me move on to a more controversial example of how these forces have distorted our modern history and changed our discourse and the way that we communicate with the diaspora and with each other. And that is the 44-day war of 2020. The conventional wisdom is that Armenia lost the war. The loss was due to Azerbaijan's drones, their superior military strength. And this narrative has gone unchallenged in the world press, but also even internally within Armenia and within the diaspora. So let's examine it a little bit critically. In the 2020 war, the Azerbaijani forces that attacked Armenia were supported by three regional superpowers, Turkey, Pakistan, and Israel, and they were backed by Russia as well. These countries supplied Azerbaijan with arms and/or real-time battlefield advice. Azerbaijan used its petrodollars to purchase battle-hardened mercenaries from Syria. Armenia, a country of 3 million people, was backed by nobody. And I mean nobody. Nobody cared what happened to us, and Armenia's brave soldiers fought with their backs against the wall. Now, the conventional wisdom is that when a small country faces one or more superpowers, they'll be forced to capitulate in a very short time. In 2008, in the war between Georgia and Russia, the Georgians lasted 16 days. With Singapore's total defense strategy, based on deterrence, in that if both Malaysia and Indonesia were to attack simultaneously, Singapore could inflict significant damage, but hold out for at most 2 to 3 weeks. Armenia held out for 44 days against 4 superpowers. We could also look at outcomes. There is no question that Azerbaijan had 3 strategic goals made obvious by their troop movements during the war. The first was the taking of the buffer regions around Artsakh. The second was taking Artsakh itself. And the third was the opening of a corridor to Nakhichevan. They succeeded with the first goal. They failed with the third goal. As for the second goal, they were forced to come to the negotiating table, having redefined success as taking Hadrut and Shushi. Of course, they eventually reached that second goal in 2023, but that was not a military victory. They did that in the most dishonorable and despicable way possible for a country to achieve a goal. With overt Russian help, Azerbaijan closed the Lachin corridor for 9 months to starve the civilian population of Artsakh to the point of malnutrition in order to ethnically cleanse the region of its native Armenian population. So that's the best they could manage with the help of 4 superpowers. When other countries with similarly breathtakingly adverse odds achieve this kind of outcome, even in defeat, the narrative is one of heroism. The British have turned the embarrassment of Dunkirk into a story and the subject of movies. The Jewish people have turned the siege of Masada and the ethnic cleansing of the Warsaw Ghetto into stories of national heroism. The American people turned the embarrassing lack of security that led to the attacks on Pearl Harbor and the World Trade Center into national rallying cries. We used to know how to do this with the story of the heroic defense of Moussaleh, but we don't seem to know how to do it anymore, or even to recognize the opportunity when we've earned it. Today, when I visit the US, I frequently see people flying the blue and yellow flag of Ukraine, a country that in the US has become a symbol of resistance against autocracy. When I visit the Middle East, I see people flying the flag of Palestine, a country that has become a symbol of resistance against genocide by settler colonialism. When I see these things, I can't help but think that there is one flag missing in this, and that's the red, blue, and orange flag of a resilient country and a brave people who have spent the last 3 decades fighting with determination against both oligarchical autocracy and the horror of settler colonialism. If we don't recognize our role in the wider international struggle against these regressive forces that threaten to pull world civilization back into the dark ages, nobody else will. It is up to us to cultivate and preserve the narrative of our own people's historic history. Heroic history, that is. So yes, we are hard on ourselves. And perhaps I'm an optimist. I'm all for pragmatism, but when pragmatism turns to pessimism, and pessimism begins to infect and dispirit our diaspora and our people, then it's gone too far. When pragmatism leads us to uncritically accept the narrative written by our enemies, it's gone too far. As I hope I've conveyed, I think we have much to be proud of. Our soldiers are true heroes whose bravery and faithfulness saved Armenian civilization, and it's thanks to their sacrifices that we still have a nation to defend, and we owe it to them to defend it with every heart and nerve and sinew that we can muster. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Boghosian. I have to reflect on this one. When you were changing the narrative, when you suggested to change the narrative of what our nation and our country has faced, since then, and I had the privilege of meeting the speakers for the panel, so it was amazing. I've gone on and I've told to every single person who would listen that how we can perhaps change our narratives, because that is about making peace with our own selves. So thank you that you have forced this. And the second thing, opinion dynamics, I don't know if you picked it up. I'm a political scientist by my training, maybe a little bit of a business education, but I went on and I read article about opinion dynamics, and I would really recommend to go and do that. So thank you for bringing that up as well. I wanted to pick it up.